guys, welcome to, this is just going to be a quick sort of how-to video. I had posted something on my Twitter page asking what sort of how-to videos you'd like to see. It got one vote, and that one vote was for fan interest and budget settings. So that is what we are going to do today. We're going to go through how I set my budgets and how I improve my fan interest. Because fan interest leads to higher budgets lead to being able to sign better players. Signing better players leads to higher fan interest, and so on and so forth. So we'll start with budgets. And I just randomly, I picked the Diamondbacks. They were just the first team on the list. So when you look at a team like the Diamondbacks, this is obviously starting at the beginning of this year. I didn't do a live start or anything. You can see they have a budget of $124 million. Player payroll currently is 83. And a lot of this obviously is going to have to do with, you know, if you're looking to tear down and rebuild, the strategies I'm going to give you here are sort of the ways to do it. If you're a big market team and you don't really need to tear down, you can sort of skip some of these steps. But the first thing I always do is I increase my scouting and development budgets. Actually, let's just kind of look at everything first. So you got your free agent. So player payroll is $83 million. Obviously, this budget includes your what you're paying your coaches, your scouting budgets, your player development budgets, your draft budgets, and that sort of thing. So budget's $124 million. Player payroll is 83, which leaves you, what, about $39 million, give or take, for your free agents, your extensions, your international signings, and your draft budgets. And right now, and I haven't looked, you can see scouting and development here, which we'll get into in a second, but we also have to take a look at the draft budget and the international amateur budgets before we can start to mess around here. So the first thing I like to do is I'll come to player development. And that gives you your draft budget, and that gives you your international amateur budget. I always will put my international amateur budget at $5 million, not $500,000, $5 million. Because as you know, if you get a stud international free agent and you're looking to rebuild, or even if you're not looking to rebuild and you're just looking for some good prospects, sometimes the international amateurs can really find you some studs. This is the one place, though, where if you want to cut this back to zero, you know, and just skip international free agents for a year or two and invest that money elsewhere, you can. But in this particular case, we're going to... Actually, you know what? In this case, we're going to bump this back down to zero because part of this is increasing fan interest, and you can't... And most international signings aren't going to bump your fan interest. So we go to the international... put this wherever you want, anywhere between 0 and 5 million. I usually leave it on one or the other depending on what my yearly budget is, and I'll get into that in a second. Draft budget right now is set at $11,620,000. Based on where we are potentially going to pick, the recommended draft slot amount is 9.3. I usually will put that right at the draft slot amount unless it's because sometimes you'll come in here. Took over a team. I don't know, even it may have been an offline game that I was doing, but it had like a $31 million draft budget, which is just absurd. You're never going to spend that much on the draft. That's a quick way to add money to your budget. So we increase the draft budget to 9.3. We reduce international amateurs. We're going to stay away from international amateurs this year. Maybe next season I would dump money into international amateurs, but that's about $7.5 million-ish that we just added to our available budget. So if we come to finances now, you see our money for free agents has jumped to $10 million, and our money for extensions has jumped to 14, just over 14. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a lot of that money. And again, if you're looking to tear down, you're not going to be spending money on free agents. You're not going to be spending money on potentially signing, you know, some of these players to long-term deals. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to take money and I'm going to put it into scouting and development. And you can only put as much as your free agent budget is. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is when you get to the international amateurs, or when you get to the draft for that matter, your only real limit is what your budget is set at here. So if we dropped the player development budget down to zero, which we could do, and we came back over here to finances, and we dumped all of this money, all of this spare $19 million into scouting and development, we now wouldn't have any money for free agent or any money in the draft, and we wouldn't have any money for international free agents. However, if we just left scouting and development where it was and we got to the draft, we would actually have $19 million that we could spend on the draft. And I'll show you guys that in a minute. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because once you get to, well, in this case, opening day, but in future seasons, when you get to the end or preseason, you need to make sure your budgets are set. So you can, even if your budgets here are set at 0, you can still spend money on the draft and the international free agents if you have money here. If you don't have money here and you don't have anything here, you won't be able to spend anything. I hope that makes sense. So we'll just put the 9.3 back in there. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll come back in here. Again, we have our 10 and our 14. And I will bump both of these. And, you know, ultimately I want to get both of these to about, I want to get both of those to 24 million. At least with the development, you can take up, I believe, to $36 million. Personally, I feel like there's a decline on the return on investment at anything beyond $24 million. But I like to make sure my scouting budget, my development budgets are set at $24 million. And we actually still have a little bit more money. So, you know, maybe we bump this to 13.5 and bump this to 15. And this, again, remember, this is all rebuild stuff, right? So if you're doing, if you're the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Dodgers or something like that, you don't have to sort of nickel and dime these free agents, and you can still up these budgets. But the strategy here is to increase the fan interest over the course of the season, which will draw more fans in, which will give you more money to then dump into here. I mean, that's ultimately what we're trying to do here. So that's kind of what I do before my season starts. Every year I go into whatever I have left for free agents and extensions, especially if I know I'm not going to be adding payroll over the course of the season. If you're a small market team or you're trying to do a rebuild, you're probably not going to be taking on any large contracts. In fact, you're likely to be removing money. So, I mean, you could get, you know, funky with it, and you could drop this down to 0 and then go, all right, I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to try to trade, you know, everybody who's over, you know, 30 years old or whatever. You just, obviously, you have to be careful there because you could potentially lose fan interest. So, how do you avoid taking huge bumps in huge negative bumps in fan interest when you're in a rebuild? Well, there's not really an easy answer to that, because if we take somebody like Madison Bumgarner, who is, well, I guess he's only fair. Let's find somebody on the team who is popular. It's not where I wanted to go. Popularity. So if we trade someone like Carson Kelly, which we wouldn't do because he's 26, or Ketel Marte, or, you know, thankfully our 4 best players here are popular. You can generally trade any of your insignificant or unknown players without taking a bump to fan interest. Once you get up into this range, you're going to start to get those fan interest crashed or fan interest dropped a little bit or whatever. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I do this at the beginning of spring training every single year, is I go to free agents, and you have your list of free agents here, and I always sort by popularity, always. And if you can find a popular player who either fits within your budget or you can sign them as a minor league free agent, do so. So Felix Hernandez, Frank Sanchez is nationally popular, D. Gordon, Matt Koch, Brandon Liebrandt, Jose Rodriguez, Josh Smith, Logan Forsythe. We're going to sign all these guys to minor league contracts because you will get fan bumps for these players. So let's sim ahead a day or two and see if we can get these guys to agree to contracts, and we'll see if we get any sort of fan interest bump. And there's no guarantee you will, but this is a quick and easy way to pick up 6 to 8 points in your fan interest, which will cushion the blow of potentially having to sign a popular current veteran or somebody that's on your team. So let's just delete these messages. We're not interested in the gameplay, obviously. So I want to make sure that we get our messages here. So we're just going to keep simming until we get I didn't want to go to upcoming free agents. I wanted to go here. All right. So did any of those guys actually sign? Okay, so we signed. It looks like only a couple of them. Rodriguez signed. Hernandez signed. I don't know that we got a fan interest bump for either of them. If I went to the right place, that would help. We didn't. Okay. But you can. You can absolutely get fan interest bumps by signing some of those international, some of those free agents who are popular. So that's the other thing I'm going to do, because you again, you need to sort of cushion that blow if you're looking to rebuild. You can also, if you go to free agents, and I don't know that I'm going to sim all the way to the end of the season, but you can sign people. So we've got okay, so let's look at Jonathan Lucroy. All right, we don't particularly care about Jonathan Lucroy, but we have $1.5 million. So let's just offer him 1.5. Let's see if we can get him on. Let's see if we can sign him to a major league contract worth $1.5 million. Let's see if he takes that. And there you go. So fan reaction to acquisition of Jonathan Lucroy, it increases significantly. So if we now go to our front office, you can see we got a 5-point bump in our fan interest simply by signing Jonathan Lucroy to a contract. Now, what we do with Jonathan Lucroy at this point, the fan AI doesn't really care. So in this particular case, we can't send him to AAA, so we would have to put him on the big league roster. But that's fine. You know, someone like Stephen Voigt, he's unknown and he's insignificant. So in this particular case, I DFA Voigt and I bring up Lucroy. Now, if you trade Lucroy, you're going to take a hit to fan interest. But now I have a 3-star catcher on our team that we can use as a trade chip to potentially bring in another popular player. And you end up just kind of shuffling those cards, or shuffling those cards around and trading one popular player for another. So you can see how big of a difference that makes. I signed one free agent and I got a 5-point fan interest bump. And you can go back in and you can take a look and you can say, all right, let's see who else is here. So we don't have any money left, but we could sign Edison Volquez. Does he want to come play with us? We're over our budget at this point, but that's the strategy. So I go in and I do this during the off season too. So when we get to the end of this season, what I'll do is I'll look at cheap free agents. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to sim ahead. I'm just going to let the game play through. I'm going to sim to the end of the regular season. I'm not going to make any trades. I'm not going to make any deals, but I'm going to sim ahead to the end of the regular season. And I'll show you where we stand in terms of budget. And then we'll kind of quickly look at free agency and sort of my strategy for free agency when it comes to rebuilding a team. So I'll be right back. All right. We're back. It is the end of the regular season. I just simmed through the season. I didn't control anything. We finished 71-91. And the cool thing is that we ended up with fan interest at 57. So played a little bit better, I guess, than they anticipated. They did change our scouting and development budgets, and I'll get into why here in a second. But basically, if you look at... through all these messages. I tried to shut off all the messages, but it wouldn't let me. I had to at least leave the ones that were personal messages. So what did he do to our budget? So we have $110 million potential payroll now. So if we go back to the front office, our budget room looks like it's increased a little bit. I think. No, it's the same budget, $136 million. All right, so from here, what I like to do is when we go to arbitration, I always will sign players to contract. The players that I want to sign to contracts, I always make sure I sign their I always make sure I sign them to contracts prior to salary arbitration. And that's because, like, if you look at someone like Carson Kelly, who's well known, we know we're going to bring Carson Kelly back, right? He's our catcher of the future, so to speak. So, and we only have to sign him to a 1-year contract. So his contract was 4 or something. So if we offer him a contract for 4.2, he'll probably take that. We submit the offer, and I always just withdraw the offer here. It's just the way I've always done it. Christian Walker, he's fair. Again, somebody that he's not interested in discussing. Okay. Caleb Smith is popular. He pitched well last year. He wants 1.7, so let's offer him 6.25. And this does a couple of things. You can almost always sign them for less than what the winning arbitration number would be, whether it's your number or their number. You can almost always sign them for less, and you can save yourself maybe not a ton of money, but you can save yourself, a couple $100,000 here and there. And if you're a rebuilding team, that's obviously important. So just from these 3 players alone, we saved about $350,000 because they will agree to those contracts. So we are going to take fan interest bumps, hits when we lose Jonathan Lucroy, which is fine. We are ahead of where we were last year. So even if we take a 5-point bump, 5-point drop, and I didn't make any trades or anything, and that's something you need to factor in here. If I was actually running the Diamondbacks, I would have found somebody to take on Cole Calhoun, or I would have found someone to take on Nick Ahmed or David Peralta, or any one of these players I'm looking to trade, Merrill Kelly or whatever, which would have given us more money. But that's not what this one's about. This is just about how to build. So when we get to arbitration, I always go through and I sign the players that I know I'm going to bring back. But if they are popular, you're going to get fan interest bumps. And again, that fan interest bump is what draws more people in. You get a higher attendance. You can bump your ticket prices. More people will come, and you make more money. So we're at $19.50, so I'll just go to $20.50 this year for ticket prices. Bump us up a buck. So again, money for free agents, $19.9, $17.5. So I want to bump this one to $15, and I want to bump this one to $18. Oops. All right, so within 2 years, we've increased our scouting budgets from $6 million and $7 million, or within a year, from $6 million and $7 million to $15 and $18. And that's, again, that could have been higher had I been actually managing the team, because I would have, again, moved some of those large contracts. So once we get to free agency, let's just sim ahead here, and you'll see we should get a fan interest bump from Carson Kelly when he agrees to the contract. Yep. So there's the contract extension. There's the fan interest. It's slight, but it's there. So it bumped us 1 point. We're up to 58. And now let's get to free agency. Caleb Smith. I thought we might get a bump from Caleb Smith. We didn't. Not a big deal. And again, we are going to take that hit when Jonathan Lucroy goes to free agency. But the thing to remember is that when we get forward to spring training, you can sign a bunch of these players, get them on your roster, and get those fan interest bumps. So, okay, we took a hit for J.B. Bukowskis. Drops us down to 56. We're still ahead of where we were a year ago. Let's get to free agency. All right, so we're in free agency. And when I don't have a lot of money, like we don't right now, we've got, what, $3 million or something? Oh, yeah, $5 million. So we have $5 million for free agents, $11 million for extensions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to look for players of need that are also popular. So for a team like us, we don't need Lucroy, although it would have been nice to bring him back. What do we need? Let's just assume, so we need a backup catcher, which is great because we can sign a cheap backup catcher who's popular. And then maybe an infielder, and then pitching, we don't really need anybody. So if we go to the off-season center, and you have to be patient, right? Rebuilds, you have to be patient. So I'm going to come to free agency, and I'm going to go, all right, cool. So we need an infielder, or we need a backup catcher, and then maybe an infielder. So I look at someone like Yadier Molina. Extremely popular local, nationally popular. It's a captain, which, again, captains are huge because it keeps the team morale up. So I'm going to go right after Yadier Molina. I don't even care really what his stats are. He's going to be my backup catcher, and this will allow us. He wants 1.9. I bet he'd take 1.5. Yep. And you could probably offer him less than that. But so we sign him, and let's find another cheap player, Chris Davis. Hamilton wants us. Let's sign Billy Hamilton. Again, this is not about who we actually sign. This is about the end result. All right. So we sign a couple of players, Molina and Billy Hamilton. Let's sim ahead and watch, see what this does to our fan interest when they sign. They're both still pending. Let's just keep going here. They both favor the offer. Come on, guys. Sign the contracts. Just waiting for him to say okay. All right, and there we go. So we signed Yadier Molina. We signed Billy Hamilton. We get players appreciate the leadership. We get a fan interest bump for Yadier Molina, which is significant. We get a fan interest bump for Billy Hamilton, which is significant. So we spent about $2.5 million on free agents, shored up a position of need, backup catcher, and our fan interest jumped up to 66. And because we bumped our ticket prices, we now have a ton of extra money coming in. You can see this year we're only at 1.9, but next year for extensions, we're already up to $20 million. So we've gone from 50 to 66 in fan interest in less than a calendar year. We have increased our scouting and development budgets from I think one was at 6, one was at 7 to 15 and 18. And we have $20 million in extensions. And again, this was with not making any moves at all for any of the bad contracts on our team. So all of these numbers could be higher if you had moved some of those contracts, because then you could, if we had traded Nick Ahmed, that's $7.5 million that comes in here that you can now dump over here and bring this up to 18, this up to 20. So, and then you just rinse and repeat. You get to the start of the regular season, you go in, you sign some popular free agents, you try to deal some of your bad contracts. You get to the end of the regular season, you sign your popular players to contracts prior to arbitration. Once you get into free agency, you find some popular players, you sign them, you repeat that process. Eventually, you'll have money for free agents, you'll have money for extensions, you'll get fan loyalty bumps, which will increase your fan interest even more. That will also increase your budget. And eventually, that fan interest will be in the 80s, 90s, close to 100. You'll have your scouting and development maxed out, and you will be good to go. So I hope that helps, guys. I hope that was an informative how-to. If there's any other type of how-to you'd like to see, just throw it in the comments below, and I would be happy to do it. I will talk to everybody later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.